Hey, what's up y'all? Goats here. Back again with another Land Cruiser 80 series video. I've got the 1993 behind me and I'm having some issues with the internal air temperature sensor, I believe is what it's called, IAT. I did some work on the Land Cruiser yesterday. Valve cover gaskets, spark plug wires, cleaned out my intake really good, cleared up the EGR valve. It was completely gummed up with carbon. So I'll probably talk about that in another video. I didn't have a chance to film any of that, but I ran into a little hitch yesterday when I was messing with the volume airflow sensor, which is this little guy right here. So I made the mistake of undoing this screw and this screw. I thought that it was just like any other mass airflow sensor and that you could just remove those two screws, pull the sensor out, clean it with some mass airflow sensor cleaner, and get it back in operable condition. So mine was working fine before I did this maintenance, but like I said, I got baited and removed those two screws and created some more trouble for myself. The check engine light came on, pulled the codes. It's an IAT code. And what happens is the engine thinks that it's a lot colder outside than it really is. And so my RPMs are revving around 1200 or so when I'm sitting in park at idle. That's a little high. This thing is supposed to idle around 650. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is pull off this volume airflow sensor, unseal the top cap, and then get inside the electronics, because when I unscrewed it and pulled out that plug, there's actually really tiny soldered connections in there, and I ripped those solders off. So now of course it's not working correctly. This is a discontinued part. You can find remanufactured ones, or you can find some that are built in China, but I don't know about the quality of those. And before I ordered anything or got one remanufactured, I wanted to see if I could fix it. So we're gonna take it off today, see what the insides look like, and see if we can solder the connections back together and get this thing operating correctly again. Let's get into it. To get this thing unplugged, you've got this little clip here. So I'm just using a pick tool to push that clip out, and that'll release. You got to do it on the other side as well. That'll get it unplugged. Then you've got 4 10mm bolts, and then there's also a bracket on this underside. There's a 10mm bolt right there. I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. I'll loosen the intake hose, 10mm here, and I'll probably have to loosen it right there at the throttle body to get this volume airflow sensor off the vehicle. All right, with the volume airflow sensor removed, just want to point out these little washers right here. So they go on this side where this rubber grommet is, and I actually just dropped one and thought that I lost it. So be mindful of that, because they're on these threads. So they'll be on the threads, then you'll put the threads through the holes, then you'll put the washer on, and then the nut on to bolt it back on. Just wanted to point that out for you. This is what you're looking to get into here. The top plastic piece is sealed with like a silicone RTV. I'm gonna take a contractor blade, razor blade, and cut into this RTV, get this cap off. Here's what you're looking at when you get inside. So I delicately cut the silicone away with my razor blade, and then pried this plastic piece up with a flathead screwdriver. Be careful. You can see here that I kind of damaged that rubber edge. No, it's actually plastic. I broke the plastic. So just be careful when you're trying to pry up on this thing. I'll have to use some extra silicone to reseal this when I'm done. When you get down in here into the circuit board, you can see this connection here, and there is a third connection up under this wire right here Those three need to be soldered. So what happens is you take these two screws out, you go to pulling on it, and the solder joints just rip loose. This thing looks relatively clean inside here. I'm still gonna clean everything with mass airflow sensor cleaner when I get done. And we'll throw it on the vehicle and see how it operates. Here's another look at the plug removed from the housing. You can see those three connections, how mangled they are. And they've got these little feet on the bottom that connect to these three pads right here. Point those out for you. Where's my tool? 1, 2, 3. And upon closer inspection of this arm on the right side there, it doesn't look like that's actually soldered. So it looks like it just makes a contact point. This probably flexes and then touches this every now and then, like so. I'm gonna try and bend these pieces that are all bent up back into place. Put a little bit of solder on them. I'm gonna show you what I've done here. This is not really the proper way to solder, but I chose to do it anyways because it's a very small space and I just want this to make solid contact. So it is making contact, but the solder is not really soldered onto the connector. What I did was I dropped a little piece of solder onto the circuit board itself, and now I'm going to try and heat up the connector from the top side, and I'm hoping that the connectors will sink into the solder, creating a nice seal. Again, I am not an expert at soldering. I have some experience, and this is what we ended up with. Doesn't look pretty, but I stuck my pick tool on those little connectors and tried to pry them up, and they are not moving. They feel on there very solid. They're not touching each other. They have space, and it feels like it's holding really nicely. And I've got this oriented in the proper way. This long bar needs to sit, there's my, oh boy, this little arm here. This bar needs to be on the side that you see it here. And now the last thing to do is to reconnect these lines, and then I'm gonna spray it with mass airflow sensor, clean this thing out. Sensor's back on the vehicle. Everything's cleaned up, sprayed it with mass airflow cleaner. I cleaned the connector on this end and then the plug as well. Got it nice and tidied up. Everything's bolted snug, so now the moment of truth. Hopefully this thing cranks. Okay, well the check engine light went away. I had a check engine light. Revving lower than it was yesterday, but this is also the first crank of the day. RPMs are slowly dipping, very, very slowly. This is definitely progress. No check engine light. I'm gonna let this idle for about 5 minutes and warm up and then check the RPMs. All right, she's purring like a kitten. And since the check engine light went off, I went ahead and put some silicone on the cap and put that back on, so that's all sealed up. And we're sitting at about 800 right now. The engine is still slowly warming up and it continues to drop. The RPMs are going down, so I'm hoping I get right to that 650 RPM mark, but we're gonna call this one good. No more check engine light. Engine is idling nicely, feels good, smooth. Hey, that's gonna do it for this video. Feeling pretty good about this volume airflow sensor now. Glad my check engine light's off. Overall, this repair was not that difficult. I do recommend maybe doing some research on how to solder if you want to attempt this yourself, and just practice a little bit, get a feel for it, because it is a tight space and you don't want to damage that circuit board while you're working, because then you'll end up having to buy the remanufactured one. So if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you tuning in, watching the content. I'm working hard to put out quality content and put out informative content as best I can as I learn more about Land Cruisers and get involved in the Land Cruiser community. So I'm so grateful that you're watching. And also, this channel dinged over 500 subs a few weeks ago. I am super stoked about that. Thank you so much, everybody, for subscribing and watching the videos, hitting that thumbs up button, hitting that subscribe button. It means so much to me and encourages me to make more videos. All right, y'all, peace out. Hope you found this one helpful. See you on the next one.